I just wanted to welcome everyone. We have a wonderful guest with us today. Congressman Steve Scalise is with us. I'll let my board president, Stuart Fauché, introduce him and let you know what we have been up to today. And it's been lots of fun down here in the Bayou area. I'll go ahead and turn that over to Stuart, but I would like to remind you, if you do have any questions for the congressman, to please use the chat feature. If you scroll your cursor in the top right-hand corner and click that chat button, if you could use that to ask any questions, we'll refer to that as we go along, and we'll make sure that we got all of your questions answered. I'm just going to slide our computer over here to Stuart. We're sharing the computer this afternoon. We're actually at the port office in Cutoff. So Stuart, thank you for being here today, and I'll let you go ahead and take it over.
Hello, everyone. Today we had the privilege of hosting Congressman Steve Scalise here in the Bayou region, with going to various businesses around, and he was speaking to lots of the employees in the area and finding out, just how much this new administration's policy will affect them in our area. Steve does not need an introduction. He's no stranger to us or the organization, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Congressman Scalise.
Appreciate it, and good to be with all the SCIA members. We normally be doing this in a big group meeting like we normally do, but these times are always a little bit unique. So Stuart, thank you, and Christy as well. Appreciate y'all hosting. We've done a couple of little meetings around here today. I was able to get in and go see some of the businesses that are in the region here, talk about some of the challenges that y'all are facing, but really want to hear from everybody. Obviously, we've all been concerned about the executive orders that have been coming out on everything from the ban or moratorium on leasing, permits, how wide is this going to go? How long is this going to last? A lot of real concerning questions. I've been very vocal that this is going to cause major problems. In fact, at a Maria Bartiromo's show this morning on Fox Business, talking about, specifically mentioning Port Fourchon. I'm right here at the Greater Lafourche Port Commission's office, and it's going to have devastating impact on a lot of states. South Louisiana clearly will be one of those, but it's the whole energy industry in general, the ability for our country to be secure from an energy standpoint, which y'all had made us. I mean, we had literally become energy sufficient to the point where we're exporting oil and natural gas all around the world. We don't want to see our state go backward. And this is going to be something that we continue to be very vocal about. I know we can get into carbon emissions. Other countries that are going to get the jobs that we otherwise have are countries that don't have the good standards we have. And I think it's important we talk about all that when I'm working on building a national coalition of members of Congress from all across the country. We have Republicans and Democrats. We're trying to get more on board, but when you throw in all of the different states that would be impacted by a ban on leasing on federal lands, it goes far and wide. And so a lot of people are very concerned about it and talking about that impact on jobs. I also bring up things like coastal restoration, the money that drilling in the deep waters of the Gulf generate, we use to rebuild land. It's a major environmental impact it would have. It would also hurt local school systems. We're putting all of that together. In fact, I was talking to Archie Chasson about Lafourche Parish, for example, and the kind of economic negative impact it would have on local governments too. So I think all that's on the table, and we're going to continue to highlight what we need to do to try to reverse it. But with that, why don't we open it up? I'd love to hear from all of you, and I guess if y'all have a process to get this going, then Stuart, you want to kick it off, take it from there?
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, they can send it through the chat link there, and we will ask the question for you, and the congressman will do his best to give the answers. Congressman, until somebody else pops up, I'll start with one. Lots of people have asked, and we've asked you, so I'll ask the same question. Are there any legal courses that can be taken to stop what is happening with, the ban on permits and the open-ended end of lease sales that you know of?
There are a number of people and trade organizations that are looking at legal action. For a lot of people on this call will remember back when the Deepwater Horizon happened, you had a ban that was put in place by then the Obama administration. The Department of Interior Secretary Salazar was found in contempt of court. Federal court ruled that a cabinet secretary was in contempt of court, and that the ban on permits, the permitorium, many things we called it, some that I can say on this call, but it was found to be illegal. And it might have been the first time in the history of our country where a cabinet secretary was found to be in contempt of court. And we finally got that ban pulled down and got back to work. So, those kind of things are being looked at right now. And like I said, it's not just individual companies, but there's some large trade associations. I won't get into who they are yet because I won't speak for them, but they're definitely looking at it.
Okay, we have a question here. The company I work for offers GWO wind training. What do you see as opportunities for wind energy development in the Gulf of Mexico?
I do think there's potential there. It's if you look at wind in general, like solar, they're more regional sources of energy. They're pockets of the country where you're going to get a maximized amount of wind or solar that you can generate enough electricity to tie into the grid. It's still a lot of infrastructure that doesn't exist yet because in many cases, especially when you're talking about wind, the energy generation mostly occurs in places that's away from your population centers. And the important thing about energy is you need to get it to people when they need it, not just when it is around. And so if the wind's not blowing, if the sun's not shining, I don't want to be at a hospital that's relying just on those sources of energy. So I'm all for renewable sources. I also know that the technology is not there right now to meet our needs fully. In fact, maybe 20% of your needs can be met by solar and wind just for your household and business electricity grid. That doesn't even count your transportation fuels. So let's continue to use all sources of energy, all of the above, not some, or, as some would say, therefore everything above and nothing below. That's not a realistic way to run a manufacturing economy. I mean, we're not going to be a first world nation if we get rid of fossil fuels. And the idea that you can and just switch it over and everybody working in the oil field can just shift over to installing solar panels. I mean, the people that suggested that, clearly they don't know what they're talking about because, number one, those jobs aren't jobs that you can turn to today, and they pay a lot less than the really good jobs that we have in the oil and gas industry. And oh, by the way, if we shut down fossil fuels in America today, we still need them. We would just become reliant on countries like Russia or Venezuela or Middle Eastern countries that don't like us. That doesn't make any sense. And by the way, they emit more carbon than we emit. So if you're worried about carbon emissions, it actually makes things worse to get rid of these jobs in the United States. So look, I'm for doing everything, but why would you shut off the source of energy that produces the most high yield, most cost efficient, clean energy that makes our economy the envy of the world?
Okay, this one says, the Biden administration officials say there's money in his climate plans for retraining oil workers to take green jobs. What's right or wrong with that plan, and isn't that transition inevitable as market forces demand cleaner fuels?
Yeah, all that sounds good except for the fact that those jobs aren't around here, and they're not, even the places where they are, they pay a lot less. And by the way, it does, I think, represent the kind of elitist, smug attitude by folks that really don't know how energy is produced, don't understand it, don't understand how safe and clean it is in the United States and the standards that we have. It seems like they love trashing the way that we do things in America, but then you go to other countries and look at the standards they use. Again, it's not like we're going to go to a zero fossil fuel economy anytime soon. It just means that if you want to get on a commercial airliner, let alone some of these people that use private jets to fly around while telling you not to use a commercial airliner, they still take jet fuel. Jet fuel still comes from oil. Until you transition fully away, you're going to need fossil fuels. And the idea that you just run them out of America and don't worry, all those people can just go work in the solar field, that's an insulting and an ignorant statement. And again, I mean, you know this and I know this. There are a lot of people that are multi-generational workers in this industry. And to think that you can just run them away or tell them to go do something else, that seems pretty smug and insensitive and ignorant of what reality is today.
What can we expect in terms of new and potentially more burdensome regulations prior to the issuing of permits for drilling in the near future?
It's hard to say. When I watched the press conference, I think it was 2 weeks ago, with John Kerry and Gina McCarthy, when they were rolling out some of these changes from Paris Accord to this moratorium on leases and permits, who knows where it's going to go. All I know is, some of the people that are involved in this, Gina McCarthy was Barack Obama's second EPA administrator. She was not just anti-fossil fuels, she was very anti-manufacturing. We were losing our manufacturing base in America during that period that she was EPA administrator. They were very failed policies. And again, it's not like the jobs just evaporated. These jobs went to other countries, and countries that don't have good standards. They went to China. They went to India. They went to places that don't have child labor laws, that don't have clean environmental standards. So again, and by the way, they pay a lot lower wages than we do in America as well. So I'm not sure what their end game is. They've never tried to really explain it besides this kind of hocus pocus that, if we just shut down this industry, something magically is going to appear to replace the oil and gas that we rely on.
Okay. What's the projected play out of existing leases in the Gulf of Mexico?
There are a lot of leases that are still out there, some that are new leases, they're contracts. And so, this gets to the legal problems if they try to just shut this off and stop issuing leases, stop issuing permits to help properly execute those leases. You are violating terms of a contract that was in place with the federal government already. So, I think there's a lot of standing that will be there for people to file lawsuits and potentially block this. And again, we could go look at the history of the lawsuits against the Department of Interior when they tried to put the moratorium on permits in place the last time, and they were not successful.
A number of letters are being written and visits to D.C. are being planned. What chance do you think that there will be for an administration to consider reversing any of these current decisions?
Well, when you see a change of administration, each one comes in and they've got their own agenda to carry out. And, clearly, you can see what the Biden administration's goal is. And frankly, they telegraphed some of this during the campaign when President Trump had kind of pressed Joe Biden on fracking, for example. And Joe Biden talked both sides of it. He said that he wanted to ban fracking, and then Trump pressed him on Pennsylvania, for example, where, swing state with fracking, and he said, oh, no, we're not going to do it there, but it's going to happen. I mean, you can see them carrying it out. I think the more noise people make to let everybody know just how it's impacting families, these are really good jobs. These are careers. And again, many cases are multi-generational careers that hit not just South Louisiana, they hit all across the country. And, even the unions are getting engaged in this because while the oil field here in South Louisiana is not unionized, in some states, you hear, for example, a lot of talk about the Keystone Pipeline. Those are mostly union jobs. And the AFL-CIO Trump had just came out very vocally opposing this as well. And so here's a case where, it's important for us on any issue you want to build a coalition. Flood insurance, for example. We've got a very bipartisan, diverse coalition all around the country to support the National Flood Insurance Program. And I've helped build it with others from both sides of the aisle to keep that program going. I think the Biden administration is going to find out very quickly that this is an industry that has a lot of support from a lot of different areas of the country. And the more we get unified and vocalize that opposition, the more chance we have to reverse it, to get, for example, the permit moratorium is 60 days. Now, will they renew it? Will they let it go away and get back to a normal permitting regime? We'll see, but the more noise we make between now and then, the better opportunity we'll have to reverse both the leasing ban and the permit ban.
Is there decision on how to replace the funding that states use, in particular Louisiana, for coastal restoration activities that are critical to sustainability and resiliency economically and environmentally?
That's a critical point. I've made this point. In fact, this morning on Maria Bartiromo's show on Fox Business, I made the point that, you go to Port Fourchon and you see all of the servicing that's done for the deep water, and that's important for the jobs, but it also generates tens of millions of dollars, and in some cases, some good years, hundreds of millions of dollars a year that we use to restore our coast. It's a major environmental battle that we need to keep educating the rest of the country on. And I do that when I bring members of Congress down to go to deep water rigs out in the Gulf of Mexico. I'll let them know how the tie-in exists between the oil and gas industry and our economic and our environmental survival. And the fact that money, like you said, is used to restore the coast and rebuild that land that we continue to lose because of decades of changes in the way we do things, but also the leveeing in the Mississippi River. We don't get that sediment from the rest of the nation anymore. This is how we rebuild our land. This is, by the way, how we fund school systems, too. And I think it's important to talk about the local impact. Archie Chasson and I talked about that, and just what kind of devastating impact it would have on local communities. My colleague Kelly Armstrong up in North Dakota, he and I were talking because, of course, the Keystone crosses over in North Dakota, and I asked him to go quantify just what kind of impact these radical decisions would have on the state of North Dakota and every community. Bismarck is going to lose out on millions of dollars of local money for their school system, for their firefighters and police officers. All of that needs to be talked about to make people realize just how devastating this could be and why we need to reverse it.
How can we help to build a broad coalition to advocate for our domestic energy industry and the funding streams that they bring to the government?
Look, this is where we all need to be reaching out to our friends, not just our neighbors, but our friends all over the country. For every company, and I know I've talked to a few companies already, but the SCIA network is very wide in South Louisiana, but if you're building a ship, there are parts on that ship that are made in multiple states. Let's get in touch with all of our vendors. Every one of you has vendors that you deal with in other states that might not think they're an energy state, but they have large delegations that might not realize today, but need to realize very quickly that you won't be buying those GPS systems and the navigational systems and the rudders and all of the other equipment that is used that's purchased, not just made in-house, but purchased from vendors in other states, how it's going to negatively impact them as well. And again, it's part of building a wide coalition. I work with other members of Congress. I've been reaching out through the House Energy Action Team. It's called the HEAT Team. It's part of the WHIP team that I run, where I have about 50 members of Congress from all around the country that really understand and advocate for energy policy. I've asked them all to go and get this kind of information. Get me all the data you can on the number of employees you have, how it's impacting them and their families, local communities. And again, every vendor you have from multiple states, the more we can reach out and try to get a wider coalition of Republicans and Democrats, the better chance we have of reversing this bad policy.
Congressman, to piggyback on that a little bit, SCIA will be putting out information periodically that we would ask that you share it to people that are not just in South Louisiana, to share it to your friends across the country and ask them to share it to their friends. The more eyes that see it outside of our region, the better off we are.
I'd love to get that, and I'll spread that, like I said, through my HEAT team. And again, it's a very wide network of members of Congress from all across the country, so I appreciate it.
Can you elaborate on the negative impacts on the environment and emissions if we rely on foreign oil rather than U.S. production?
Yeah, and I think this is an important question for us to raise in bringing up science, because too often, and you all see this, they try to pit the oil and gas industry against saving the planet. So if you're some, fifth grader in California and your teacher's telling you, gee whiz, these oil companies are creating all this pollution and they overemphasize things, they exaggerate things, they undermine the standards that we use every day, and then they try to make it about jobs versus the environment. And gee whiz, who wants to be on the side of destroying the planet? The problem is that's not the science. The science is on our side on this. We just don't talk about it enough. If you think about this, again, they're not suggesting that we get rid of oil and gas in these next few years. That means if you're in Russia, you just got a gift from the Biden administration because now Russian energy becomes more favorable. If you're in Saudi Arabia, any other Middle Eastern country, if you're in Venezuela, you were just given a leverage gift by the United States because we told you we're not going to compete against you anymore. We're going to shut off our reserves, but our economy still needs oil and natural gas. The world's economy still needs it, and many of those countries are getting it from us right now. When they're not getting it from us, guess what happens? It's made in countries that actually don't have the same standards that we do. More carbon will be emitted if they make that oil and produce that oil in Russia. More carbon will be emitted if they produce that oil in Venezuela as opposed to the United States because their standards aren't as good as ours. We need to go back and remind people just how important safety is. When I take people onto a deep water rig, I'll tell you, the thing that blows them away the most, I mean, it's the technology is amazing. They really are blown away by just how you're on this floating island and it's a multi-billion-dollar asset, and you see all of these people working, making really good incomes in the middle of the ocean, and yet you look down in the water and there's no oil sheens. It's Caribbean blue water because we have good standards already. That's not the case in other countries. And so if you're worried about how much carbon's being emitted, which, by the way, is their big argument, John Kerry flies around on his private plane to Iceland to collect these awards to say, look, I'm saving the planet while he's emitting all this carbon. The problem is the carbon is still going to be emitted just at a higher level when they make that energy in other countries. We lose the jobs and the global emissions actually go up, which is the opposite of what they're trying to tell people we want to achieve.
Hey, that seems to be the last of the questions, so I'll just take the time to thank you again for all that you do for us in our area and our industry, for being here today and visiting with the workers in our area, and tell you again that there's anything that you or anyone else may need, please reach out to us and let us know, and we can help you as much as we can.
Well, thanks, Stuart. I love working with all of you, and y'all know how to get in touch with me or Megan or Fred in my district office here. Get us all the information as you're seeing problems. If you're having problems with permits and you're trying to do some basic maintenance and upkeep or managing your lease and you're getting pushback in red tape coming out of the federal agencies, let us know immediately. You're going to see it before I see it. And that's going to be powerful to go and push back on what they're doing in Washington. So love working with y'all. Hopefully we'll see each other in person under better circumstances. But for now, whatever we can do to help you get through this, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. Congressman, you had a record-breaking number on blue jeans today, so congrats. You win the prize.
Hey,
hopefully we'll
see
have
some cream cake or something at home. Y'all take care.
Thank you.
Bye.